Nice clap.
What?
Nice clap.
Thanks, man. All right. Welcome to the Growing Pains podcast. So if you missed the summary, basically what this podcast is going to be about is just three of us who are seniors in high school, and we're just going to kind of be giving younger perspectives to things that are relevant to everyone and only to our age bracket, kind of just across the board, everything. So that's kind of what we're about. This episode specifically, we're going to be talking about just everything that's going on in 2020, COVID, stuff like that, because kind of been hearing it everywhere, and I'm kind of tired of hearing about it 24/7. So we just kind of want to get it out of the way because it's obviously something that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it's the elephant in the room.
Yeah, it's just something that's kind of unavoidable, but at the same time I don't want it to be something that's brought up every episode. So we're kind of just going to talk about stuff that's going on in 2020 along with sort of introducing ourselves. So my name is Jacob, and I'm kind of acting as the host for this first episode.
I'm David Ramsey, a good friend of Jacob.
And I'm Jackson Lawrence, and I am a good friend of David.
Yep. All right. So anyway, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about, just to give you an intro. And so the first thing we're going to dive into here is, obviously, like I said, the big thing is COVID. And to offer sort of the unique perspective that not everyone has, as seniors in high school, we actually went to spring break our junior year and didn't end up going back to school after spring break. And we haven't been to school in 6 months, which, interestingly, we kind of talked about a couple weeks ago that, this is the longest that we have ever, not been in school, since we were, little
in
kids.
Our lives.
Yeah, so that's definitely been unique. We definitely had a lot of free time. So to sort of, open it up, I guess, and get stuff going, I guess. We actually had an assignment from one of our teachers to for a broadcast journalism class that we're in, to make a little 10-minute podcast, not really a podcast, but just talking about the impact of the virus and quarantine, stuff like that on us personally. And something that I talked about a lot was at the beginning everyone was talking about how they were robbed of this or that, and they're missing out on this or that, but kind of what I talked about in that assignment was the fact that while a lot of things were taken away, I also gained a lot of things, a lot of time to myself that everybody, especially high school students, wishes for when they don't have it. So that's kind of the main thing. That was kind of the first thing early on that I latched onto from COVID. I mean, it's definitely been negatives, but if one of y'all
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there have been some positives about COVID that I didn't really know would happen once we kind of went into this storm, this mess. I've definitely had a lot more time to myself. And if you think about it, COVID has really made us have to mature at a very quick rate. And I wouldn't say that we're the only generation that's had to do this, because there have been other circumstances in, teenagers' lives throughout the years that have almost been worse than what we have to deal with right now. But it makes you grow up really fast, because what is wrong with the world and what is wrong with our country has kind of just been blasted in your face, because you don't really know what you're going to do during a time like this until it actually happens. You can't tell. So I definitely think that the time by myself and the time with, some of my closer friends, because I can't be in large groups, has really given me an insight on myself that I have needed for a long time. So that is definitely a positive.
So, as a general, that's just kind of, first thoughts. But, let's talk specifically about, negatives. So, we were kind of, prepping for this episode, thinking about what we should talk about to open it up. And basically, we decided the unique thing about what we're doing here is our perspective as teenagers, as high school students. That's something unique to us that not everyone can offer. So a lot of the things that we think is probably what the general public has been hearing from our age bracket about COVID is oh, we were robbed of our senior year and we're missing out on this or that. And uniquely enough, the three of us actually have been sort of on the other side of that, seeing in our eyes, or at least in mine, I don't know about y'all, but I'll just sort of say my perspective. So to me, that's not really what's important, because while we are missing out on maybe the traditional and like we haven't been seniors, but like while the seniors, the class of 2020 might have missed out on the traditional like end of year stuff, they're also like getting to experience like time with themselves and with their like close ones, like before they go off to college in a way that's bigger than anyone else has ever had. Like, you know, for most high school seniors, like you literally have like a month and a half to 2 months with your family and your friends outside of school, and then you're off.
And you're
like,
gone.
You're gone into real life. And like, I think that's also something really unique that people are taking for granted, like, because it's a lot of time that we're getting. But I think that us being on the opposite side of the whole like we're missing out thing will offer like unique perspective, because it's really about like what's important, you know, because like
Exactly. And you know, I don't even know if our perspective on this is unique. I just know that
just at least in our area,
I just know that
seems.
the narrative of seniors being sad because they miss graduation and prom and stuff has overtaken the narrative of, you know, safety and some of the actual pluses that you get. Because, you know, you turn on the news, and especially once this hit, you know, like it hit in, you know, around February or around March actually. So last year, all seniors missed was prom and graduation. And obviously those are two pretty big events. And at that time, we didn't really know what this would become. We thought that this would be gone by June, by July, you know, so you definitely see. I've personally seen a lot of how the media can portray a narrative in a certain way through this, because I've talked to people who are more concerned with, you know, I think we shouldn't go back until we're safe, you know, and but you get on the news and you get on social media and you see a lot of like, oh, I'm so bummed out I didn't get to walk across the stage for my graduation.
Social media.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, I'm not going to downplay like the fact that that sucks, because it does suck. And
yeah, but comparatively it doesn't really
exactly,
matter.
like you got to get your priorities straight, you know, like there's big things happening right now that aren't just affecting seniors. I don't think that it's a unique perspective to think that we need to stay away from school, but I think that it is a narrative that hasn't gotten as much attention, or at least initially it didn't get as much attention.
And I mean, like, not to say unique, like, just if we really want to look at it, I'm sure there are plenty of people who think that way, but unique as opposed to like what most people seem to think about high school seniors.
Yes.
And I mean, it's like, I mean, you made like literally like the perfect analogy, like right when this all started. It was like talking about going back to school right now and like talking about missing prom is like being on the Titanic when it was sinking and like being upset about the lobster dinner that you were going to eat the night that it sank. Like, you know, like it's just like you have to realize, and like you were saying, like it really does suck, because like it's something that you're never going to get back.
Yeah,
but,
and you hear a lot of adults talk about that time of their lives, and you know, the glory days of being a senior is very important to like the American, you know, like lifestyle. And it's a benchmark. I wouldn't say that it's like very important, but it is a benchmark in an American's life, is like senior year of high school, senior prom. You hear about stuff like that a lot. And it offers a sense of closure that like nothing else can to a period of your life where you've made a lot of change. You know, like if you talk to someone and you ask, have you changed from 9th grade to 12th grade? They're going to tell you all of the ways that they changed and exactly how it happened, because it's a very transformative time. So like, once again, we're not bashing the narrative that like it sucks, but to put that narrative above the narrative of COVID and safety is just almost disrespectful to, you know, people who have lost loved ones and people who can't leave the house because they have pre-existing conditions.
I mean, honestly, like, talking about disrespect, like, I think one of the reasons that young people are being seen, like, or young people, like, high schoolers particularly, are being seen in the light that they are, like, in relation to the virus and the response, is because I don't know about everywhere, but here definitely, like, there were a lot of people at the beginning of like quarantine that like just ignored it, like that
and just letting y'all know, like, we're from Mississippi, so
we're from the Jackson area.
Yes, we're from the Metro Jackson area of Mississippi, and if you haven't checked the news in the past 6 months, deep red states don't really take COVID very seriously, and that has definitely been seen in the lifestyle of those around us and how people act.
Yep.
Yeah, Mississippi's number one in a lot of wrong things.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked.
I mean, it's honestly like, and to be fair, like even though we're talking like bad, like like bad response, I haven't seen many like of the extreme cases with like the mask thing where people are just yelling in public and like doing stuff like that. I myself have not like witnessed that, and also like don't know that anyone like that I know closely has witnessed that, other than like when you were talking about your job and like the people's response to like having to be tested. But like that's honestly like the worst or the most drastic response that I've heard of.
Yeah, I'll just give you all a tip in reference to my job. I work for a chain of clinics around Mississippi and Alabama called Trust Care, and I really help with communicating with patients about their COVID results and everything. So, I love the job because it's really given me an insight on kind of how people work, really. And it shows you that when there's a scary time like COVID, like people face it in ways that they didn't know they could act like. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't really understand how you will act in a situation until that situation occurs, like I said a little earlier, and my job has really shown me that, because there are people who are very appreciative and there are people who are freaked out, and I don't blame them for being freaked out.
I mean, yeah, definitely. Like I wouldn't say like there's nothing wrong with being scared. It's just that like you can't let that like deter you from accepting the fact that like you might have the virus, because like one of the things that's just like super like crazy, outlandish, whatever you want to call it, to me is the fact that people have symptoms and don't get tested. Like that's
well, and one other reason that they don't get tested is like it's very hard to get a test in America right now. It has gotten better at like the later we've gone on. Like the longer I've worked there, like I don't deal with anybody freaking out anymore. But like when it first became, the problem that it is today, we didn't know when we would get our results back, how many tests were available. You'd show up to any clinic in the state of Mississippi and you could get turned down, and like I remember at the start of COVID, they won't even test people that didn't have a fever, and now you learn about like asymptomatic people and whatnot. So
I mean, I think as a whole, like just like the portrayal of COVID, and especially like what we were talking about with like high school students, has just been like a little blown out of proportion, at least from my personal experience. And
exactly,
like obviously like my personal experience and the three of our personal experiences like don't speak for everyone.
Yeah, we can't generalize,
but
our
like,
entire generation based on what we've felt and seen.
But through our view, like it's really like we're kind of getting a bad rap as a whole. But like I said, we've been hearing everybody talk about COVID. I mean, we're not quite done with 2020, but we can move on to like sort of like, I mean, COVID has played into this political divisiveness and sort of like how there's no like being in the middle, or no like not having a radical or like super far standpoint on any one subject. I mean, you brought this up when we were like talking about what we were going to talk about on the first episode. So if you want to kind of like give
I mean, it just seems that the last 4 years, the presence of a gray area on issues has kind of gone away, and it hasn't actually gone away, but the portrayal like of a gray area has gone away, and I see a lot of identity politics being played out, where it's you're this or that on any number of issues. Even COVID, you're this or that. If you support this person, you believe this, and it's really sad to watch something like COVID turn into that, because like this should not be a political thing, and it's just sad, and it's not about either side. I feel like the thing that has happened is people care more about being right than being together. And I feel like until we don't have that feeling of togetherness and unity, things are going to continue to go down the path that they're going right now.
Yeah, I mean, talking about political divisiveness, the main thing that I have like gotten like talking with other people our age is, I mean, as someone, I don't have like super strongly or super well developed political alignings or like beliefs. I mean, like obviously it's something that you kind of gain, like I'm working on like right now because like I'm gonna be able to vote.
Yeah.
So like that's something that I definitely like have been paying more attention to and like need to pay more attention to at this time in my life. But I think it's really common for like people our age to either be exactly like their parents or the complete opposite,
Yeah.
and like without really knowing what they believe. And what like that has led into for me is me expressing my opinion on something. And usually like my opinions like I think have been like pretty moderate. Like it's not like, like super hard one way or the other.
They've
but
been almost in that gray area that I was talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, I like am pretty like strong in the believing in the fact that like moderacy is important in all things. I
Yeah.
mean, not just this, but like it's important that you keep that in mind.
Exactly.
And, yeah, like and so like a lot of the times when I express my views that oppose someone else's who is like that, like strongly one way or another without like any real backing, like I am often labeled as like something that I don't even know if I am.
Exactly.
I'm labeled like left or right, like whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it. And like I just think it's really like wrong. Not wrong, but like just sort of foolish to like to talk like that when you really like aren't as well educated as you should be to like to degrade someone else's political beliefs, and like and that's really what it is today is like no one like just wants to like talk, like no one wants to get to a conclusion, they just want to throw their opinion
And they
at
want to
someone
be
else,
right.
like yes, like louder than the other person, which is like I really think especially like with COVID, like going back to it a little bit, you hear like people who are like it's a conspiracy or like like anything like that,
Yeah.
like or it's not as dangerous as they're telling us, or hospitals are gaining or like cheating the system to make
Yeah.
money and stuff like that. And it's like you hear like all this crazy stuff and you would think that like we have this crazy virus that is killing people, hospitalizing people, like running through our government and hospital money like nothing. And you would think people would be like, let's come together to support. But like it's really, I mean, like you said, it's just been kind of like sad to
Yeah.
like watch how quickly like everyone has just broken, like has split right down the middle. And like you can't, like you would think that we would want to come together. I mean, like you were saying.
Exactly. And I feel like honestly the gray area that I talked about, kind of going away is actually here in the sense that there's a lot of people that still believe that we should come together, and they believe that no one is definitely right, that there's always room for improving your mindset and growing. However, I feel like those people aren't portrayed as loudly as the people that are, on each side, because a lot of times the things that sells best on the news or on social media, anywhere that you look that is a media type of platform where people can hear others' voices, the extremes are heard a lot louder than the moderates. And that has made the political divisiveness that is here right now just amplified, because I personally don't think that the average American feels the way that average Americans are portrayed to feel
Yeah.
anywhere, that a voice can be heard. I feel like there's still good in people's hearts. And until that is portrayed just as much as the hatred, I just don't even really know what would happen. I don't have much of an answer, but I just hope that the gray area can come back into the, foreground.
Like being accepted and portrayed
Yes.
like adequately.
Yes.
Well, like talking about emotions, like you're talking about like like we're saying that it's sad to watch this stuff, and you're talking about like people who like have good hearts and like so obviously like another big thing and another thing that's being talked about everywhere is sort of like the racism, the racial injustice, and the riots going on. Obviously like kind of like a touchy subject with a lot of people, and just to clarify, like the three of us are all white,
Yes,
and we are
Caucasian
all like
males.
we're all
So,
well off. Our families aren't like
Yes.
we're not in any like bad situation, that to be able to relate to like the people who are suffering like due to this like racism and due to these actions, but that doesn't mean like we don't care, because
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I mean, like speaking like me personally, like it makes like watching the video of like George Floyd was like literally just like, how does this happen? Like,
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
yeah, like it really is. Like, and like I said, like we can't relate, but like, you know, it's more like we can still have sympathy and not we can't have empathy, because like we can't understand, like we can't feel that pain in the same way that black people do in America. But like,
Exactly, and I feel like recognizing that is a very important role to
mhm,
changing things, because in order for change to happen, you have to recognize that, as a white man in a, middle class background, I don't have the same worldview or fears that a black man, black woman, or anybody else would have. So I think it is very important for us to, like, right off the bat just claim that we don't know.
yeah.
We're not trying to know, but we are trying to help, and I just think that that's a fair statement.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, just like recognizing it. And I mean, this, like, we're recording this like what, 2 or 3 days after Jacob Blake
Yes.
was paralyzed, and like just to see, like, honestly, you know, you watch the video and like we said, like it's heartbreaking, it's sickening, like it's literally just like awful, like it's like the depths of like what humans are capable of doing, and just a lack of any sort of sympathy or empathy or morality whatsoever. And like, so you see the video, but then like what's even worse to me is to go online and like you see people like defending the police officers, and not to say that there is no defense to an action being taken. So like, honestly, like, let's just talk about it since it's recent. Like, I think I at least like think that so like, you know, you see the videos of the officers, and there's what, like 4 officers there and 1 man, and I actually had a conversation with a couple people, what, one a day or two ago, and like, yeah, and I mean, like, they had a different viewpoint than me on this whole thing. They were kind of more in defense of, like, you know, what he did warranted action. And um while I think like what he did warranted like tasing or restraint, like just like the simple fact of it is, in my opinion and in my view, is that none of those actions were taken before the extreme, like before lethal measures were used. And like, to go online and to see these people who were not taking like the viewpoint of, like, you know, like he could have endangered them, so like it was right for them to defend themselves, but people who were just saying that he deserved to be shot, and one of the leading things is because like he was a criminal, and like, so like he should have, like, what he did like warranted being shot. And like, the main thing, like, even talking to my parents about this, that like is the end of the conversation, in my opinion, is that police should never kill anyone for even for committing a crime. Like, unless their life is being threatened, or the life of someone else, there is no reason that they should kill someone. And obviously, like, this is a really touchy subject, but like, that's just kind of how I feel. And like, I'm not like, you know, I'm not trying to, I don't want to talk about this and not like really talk about it, you know, just like be part of the, because, you know, that's being part of the problem, is just like ignoring it, like not ignoring it even fully, but just like glossing over it. Like,
Exactly, because like it is human nature to kind of avoid things that make you uncomfortable,
Yeah.
in any sense, and it is very hard to talk about something that, could get you canceled.
Yeah.
But I do think that it is important to make sure that you vocalize that something is wrong.
Yeah.
Because if you do not vocalize that something is wrong and you are silent, you are doing the opposite of what you should be doing. And that's what I feel like a lot of people our age really struggle with, is like,
Standing up for it.
I see a lot of kids our age who have become so turned off by the political process and by the state of everything, just because of how divisive it is, that they don't want to have any opinions. But you have to realize that when it comes to something that involves human rights, your silence goes towards the enemy's gain.
Yeah. And I mean, one positive thing of this whole movement is that like people like white males like us can like see, because like, I mean, obviously, like, we knew it was out there, but like this has really like played a role in like people speaking up and being like, look, like this is like the pain that we are in, like just existing and being the race that we are, and like just like seeing that is something that like I in my life have never seen on this level before, because it's like this is the first time that like it's been like everybody needs to speak up. Like, it's not just like the leaders, it's everyone. Like, it's the kids our age at our school, like talking about like the things that happen to them, and even like I mean, I like would consider our school like pretty like good when it comes to this, but I don't know. And we've seen things that have proved that may say otherwise, and it's like
it's really crazy because all of these videos that have come recently, and even videos from before we were born, like Rodney King in the 90s, they show a glimpse into a world that I could never imagine.
Yeah.
The school that we go to is majority white.
Yeah.
We live in a town that's majority white. I've never seen this happen. I've personally never seen anything like that happen. So the problem is when people like me and like Jacob and Jackson, who have never seen this happen, think that because they personally have not seen it happen, it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's such a big difference between like knowing that like just knowing the fact that sometimes people are killed by police, like, rather than actually facing the reality and understanding that it's real and that it happens and it's a big problem. And it's really important to recognize that there's a problem in this country, because too many people kind of defend the fact that there's nothing wrong. They try to act like there's nothing wrong. And the thing is that in a way that almost hurts them in the long run, because when all this stuff keeps happening and nothing happens to, there's no justice for people, and nothing happens over and over again, things happen and no change is made, right? And so this stays in the news, right? And then when it dominates the news, like, other problems can't be addressed, right?
Exactly.
So when you don't do anything about the problem at the forefront of our country, you are kind of hurting other causes that also need attention, because when people are, kind of trying to shield themselves from the reality that African Americans are killed by police, unjustifiably, that stays in the news because it's a fight and it's a struggle, and it goes neither one way or the other because it just stays in the news. And there was a kid who was shot in the head by an adult, right? Like, everyone knows that. But see, the thing is that everyone complains about how, George Floyd and other African Americans who were killed by police are on the news, but they're the ones keeping it there, right? Yeah. And it took a few days, a couple weeks, for that kid who was murdered to, show up in the news, right? And so it's really important that we recognize there's a race issue in our country, so that we can do what we can to solve it, to make things normal, to really to make ourselves to give ourselves the ability to really say that everyone is equal and everyone is treated equally, so that once we can solve this problem, we can move on to others and give attention to other things.
Yeah, and this really kind of proves that all of this ties together. Like, while you guys were talking, I was really thinking about how the racial injustice in America and the COVID situation and so many other situations like climate change, the problems in the Middle East, any situation that humanity as a whole is facing right now, it proves to you that people do not want to accept a problem when it's abstract. If it's not in front of their face, they don't like to agree that it is a problem. And you can see this in global warming, like down in Mississippi, it's always hot. So when it gets a little hotter, you can't tell the difference.
It's just like, wow, it's kind of hot today.
So it's very hard for people to accept these problems, and it shows through our generation especially that, like, these are problems that need addressing, because I've seen more movement from our generation than I have some of the other generations. Like after the Parkland shooting, massive movement led by people our age. It was not an adult that led that. It was the kid. Like, we saw kids our own age on national TV doing things that were very, brave.
And like about that, like I just remember like back then, like even when there were talks, we were in ninth grade
Yes,
when
we
that
were
was
in
like
ninth
in
grade.
the heart of like that movement. And like I remember there were a lot of people who were like, like if we walk out, we get out of class. And that was like something that a lot of people were thinking, like, oh, it's just like high school kids like finding any reason to get out of school. But like there's always going to be people like that. And the real thing about that was, even if they're walking out for that reason, there are people who aren't, and they're part of that movement. They're part of the image of like, look what our generation can do. Like, you think we're just a bunch of stupid kids who like just care about like high school stuff, but like it even goes back to what you were talking about. Like, there's a lot of things that we have gone through that have just forced us to grow up. Like, because
The whole time that we've gone to school, we've done lockdown drills.
yeah, which is like, like a lot of the times I don't even like think about it. Like, it's just like, oh,
Yeah,
we're doing this.
And
The fact that we have to
is awful.
Yeah,
and it's terrifying.
And you see people cope with it in different ways, because like people make jokes now. Like,
Yeah.
if there's a weird kid at school, they'll be like, "Oh, you better watch out. Like,
Yeah.
he'll come to school the next day and
Yeah.
shoot us up." Like, that shouldn't be a joke at all. That shouldn't be something. That shouldn't be a reality that so many American kids have had to face.
Yeah.
And
school shooting shouldn't even be a possibility.
exactly. And then on top of that, now we're going to have to go back to school during all this COVID mess.
Yeah.
And we're being forced to go back to school. Actually, we're not being forced. I'm not going to say that, because we have online options.
Yeah.
But it's still like a risk that we are that many students are taking. And there's just these risks as a teenager that we're taking that like are almost unheard of in the previous generations. And that is kind of the root of why our generation is so politically active, is because we're seeing these problems firsthand, and we're seeing a lot of problems firsthand. And I feel like a lot of teenagers have realized, like, if we're not the ones to step up and try to do something about it, no one is going to speak for us, because there's a lot of adults who have not spoken for us. After that Parkland movement, what happened? Nothing.
Yeah.
Like, nothing. There was no reform that happened. There was no real change that happened. And having your voice not be heard that way is very frustrating. And, if you want to bring it back to the racial injustice, they're used to not having their voice heard. And that's why they go and riot and burn things down. And, like, that's a very divisive thing, is a riot, because like you either agree with that or you don't agree with that. And that is one issue where it's very hard to stay in a gray area, because it is very passionate, and it is very angry, and it is the result of years and decades and almost centuries
of ignorance
Yes.
and just not listening.
Exactly.
Like that's how my parents, like that's how my mom specifically like kind of described it. I mean, she was like, like I get it. Like, even if, people are getting hurt in the riots, and like it is like that is real. Like, people do get hurt in riots, but it's like it's just natural response. It's like, oh, you can't hear me, like I'm just gonna scream louder, like, and like you can only get so loud and like so visible before it gets to physical level, like,
and that's happened throughout human history.
yeah, like
America wouldn't be a country if it weren't for stuff like that happening.
yeah. And I mean, even like the death of George Floyd, like, has served as like a real figurehead, and it's something that like I think has been really well like used for some sort of positivity, and because like every movement like needs something to get behind, and like that's what it was for so long. And like, but it's honestly like even worse to see it like die off, because like like it's not over, nothing has changed. Yeah, it's like this is still going on, like Yeah, and you want to talk about that. Like, one of the most popular things is, like, all these boycotts and protests, and people are like, what is that going to solve? Well, like, okay, so, like, as an NBA fan, like, just think about this perspective. So you're watching the playoffs, and, like, honestly, like, you could have been ignorant of everything going on up to this point. It would have been really, really difficult. But, like, or you could have just brushed it off, But all of a sudden, like, it's playoffs time, Like, this is the big time of the season. Like, this is when everybody's watching the NBA. Like, yeah, one of the, like, debated greatest players of all time, and he's ready to quit, to leave the season. And you see that in the news, and you're like, why? And you find out, like, it's because, like, he is a black man in America, and, like, he wants things to change. And, like, honestly, like, we watched a game together the other night, and, like, hearing LeBron, like, he did an interview after the game, and it was just sad, man. Like, he was like, like, he was just talking about how it's just difficult. Yeah. And he was like, like, just because of our skin tone, like, all this crap that's just happening to us and to our people, it's, like, painful to be that like, it's painful to be that type of person in America right now. Like, it's painful just because of your skin color, and, like, it's honestly, like, we acknowledge that it's a very touchy subject, but I mean, I feel like we can't, like, I wouldn't want to come on here and just, like, talk about it without, like, like, talk about current day without addressing it. And you were kind of talking about earlier about, like, how a lot of the times, like, teenagers don't get their voice heard, and, like, this is kind of not, like, something that we plan, but, like, I don't know the statistics, and I may be wrong, but, like, I just think, like, the amount of people who our age who have anxiety, who have, like, chronic panic attacks, who have depression, seasonal depression or clinical or whatever you want to call it, is a result of just, like, ignorance. Like, nobody wants to, like, acknowledge, people our age problems as being real, and not to come off as, like, complaining, because, like, people our age also have a lot of benefits that people, like did not have when they were our age. Yeah. And I mean, we have access to technology to connect to people, to do what we're doing now, to, like, have a creative outlet that people have never had before. But, like, it's just on a greater level, like, everyone, like, a lot of people in the world just want to treat other people's problems like they're not real, and it all goes back to, like, what we're talking about. It's because, like, it's not personal experience, so they, like, don't get it. And, like, what's important, I think, is to, like, really understand the whole of a subject. Like, like, because it's like our parents don't understand, like, what it's like to be this age now. We don't understand what it was like to be this age when they were their age. And, like, but it's important that we learn from the mistakes that they made, but they learn how to treat us, and how to be, like, good parents, and how to be good people towards people our age, from, like, the things that we have to deal with,
Exactly. And, like, I think one big problem that we've had to face that is unique to our generation is just how much stress is put on us at this age.
Yeah.
Because, and not stress as in, like stresses that adults have to face, and, it's like the actual verb of we are stressed to academically succeed because of how expensive college is.
Yeah.
Like, I've talked to my parents about this, and, I asked them about, like, where they were at in high school, like, academically, and, like, they weren't dumb by any means,
Yeah.
but they just didn't have to put the level of effort into high school as we do, because they were able to go to college when it was affordable. But since it's so expensive now, we have to be like Jesus Christ and able to get accepted to, the university that we would like
and
to
let
go
alone
to.
to, like, get scholarships, and
Yeah,
to get
exactly.
and to get financial aid.
Best of the best at your school, like,
Yeah.
top in the state, pretty much.
Exactly. And, that's not to say that that is the worst thing that could ever happen to us, because, like,
We have the opportunity
I do acknowledge
to
that
work hard.
and it's also pushed me to, like, get to a level of education and of
Like,
knowledge
intellect.
that I wouldn't have attained. And so, like, this competition against my other peers has definitely made me into a better student and a better person. So it's not to say that it's all bad, but it is to say that, like, you have seen mental health issues get kind of pushed to the forefront of like our generation through shows like 13 Reasons Why for a reason, is because there's a lot of kids at high school that have these issues, and there's a lot of kids who are just told to brush this aside and to keep going, make all A's, get this number on your test, get blah blah blah, because that's all you are. And if you're not perfect, then you're not going to get the opportunities that someone who is perfect is going to get. And that's like, that's a pill that I've had to swallow that's been really tough on me for the past couple of years, because like the older you get, the more you realize like, holy crap, since 6th grade I've had to be like perfect attendance
You've been
and crap
under a microscope.
yeah,
Like,
exactly, to make sure that the opportunities that I have when I grow up are adequate.
Well, I mean, and you were talking about 13 Reasons Why, which is like, like definitely doesn't have the best critical like response. A lot of people think it's overdone, especially like the longer it went on, because it did go 4 seasons, and yeah, and it definitely was. But I watched the whole thing, and I remember we were in what 7th or 8th grade when the first season came out on Netflix, and it was, yeah, I know we were in middle school, but I think it was 8th grade. I think you're right. But we were like 15 and or 14, 15, and in the second or third to last episode, like the main character like commits suicide graphically, and like there was a big backlash to that. And the thing is, man, is like she committed suicide, and it was hard to watch, but at that age, like, you want to talk about perspective, like we had already faced that like in real life, like like that stuff happens, yeah, that's what, like you experience like people like just being gone, and like and I have never talked to like a kid who like a not even like to say a kid, but like a person our age that like had an issue with that, because like we're, I mean, you want to say desensitized, you want to say whatever you want, but like that is reality for us, like kids literally like kill themselves because of the stress that is put on them by school or by life or by situations that they're in, regardless. And like that's like real, like that, like, and the big thing with that was that people were trying to like hide that, and like I think that that's crap. Like I think that show did something that was really important, and that honestly, like, I have not seen even another form of media do to that level, like to on that scale, because it's like a show that was made by Netflix, like one of the most popular entertainment companies like today. And even more recently on season 4, like what we were talking about earlier, the school shootings, they made what in my opinion was a really well directed and written episode about a school shooter drill that was made to be hyper realistic, and like it made multiple students have panic attacks. And while like they even brought in like fake guns and stuff and were shooting rubber bullets, and while like that would not happen in a high school, like it just really shows, like it just made me think. Like I watched it real late at night, and I remember walking like down my stairs and like before I went to bed, and I was like, my God, like imagine like the mental impact that can have on people, like a drill like that, because it's like even though that was an extreme, like that can scare people, like, and it's something that is awful. And I mean, like we've kind of already like talked about this, but like you bringing up that show, just like I think that it gets a bad rap because it really did try to do something good, and even though it was dramatized for money and for views or whatever, like there's a message there. And I mean, even on a larger note, like there's a lot of people our age who just like pretend like that stuff doesn't exist, like it's like everything is like high school sports, like parties, like whatever. But like I think we have a real responsibility, because like we're supposed to make the world better for like the people who come after us, and it's like um I don't know, man, like that's just like as a whole, I mean, it's just important. Like education is important, like you were talking about, and stuff like that. And so like sort of the other thing that I kind of wanted to do for this episode, and that we sort of wanted to do, was to just talk about ourselves a little bit, just so like anyone listening like knows who they're listening to a conversation of. So like obviously we've sort of talked about like stuff which shows our views and like sort of like morality or like standpoints on this and whatever. Um, so like how, so like sort of, I know it's sort of a broad topic. So to narrow it down a little bit, like what would you say like y'all how would y'all say like you've changed like majorly this far in high school? And obviously like we're not done, but like so I'll just like start so y'all can like think. So you were talking about sort of like how like we're being put under a microscope, um, and I think that really something that I've learned this far in high school, and this far in life in general is that like the world like doesn't care about like what's going on in your life, you know, like that's something that I really learned in ninth grade, because like ninth grade like emotionally and mentally was like a really challenging time for me, but and like my grades reflect that, you know, because it's like how can I like come home and face like what I now realize like was probably depression or something close, because of like social situations and stuff like that. Like how can you go home and like how can I come home and face that and be expected to go to math first block and make an A, like, you know? And it's like, yeah, and it's like it's something that I can't erase, you know, because like that happened to me in ninth grade. Well, I can't go back and retake that class. Like now the grade is what it is. And like and so that was really like after I sort of got past that stage in my life, I was like, you know, like people will look at that and they'll see like, oh, he made like a less than like his other grades in this class, but like they won't know, you know, like they'll never know like why that is, you know, like unless they ask me, which no one will, you know, because like no one cares. And as much as like, you know, not to again like sound complaining, just like what I've seen as reality, what I've perceived as reality. And even more recently, I took a class this past year, this junior year, and I actually like made a lower grade than I wanted to, or than my parents like kind of expected me to, because it was kind of one of those classes where like you don't really like have to commit to it to like make a good grade. It's kind of like one of the less strenuous courses, and I made a B, and like my mom was like, why? And like you said it, like, you know, you could make a better grade, and I was like, you know, like it's really not something that I care about, you know, like it was a class. I was like, you know, like it's not something that I'm passionate about or that's going to help me in my life. And so and I know, David, you also took this AP psychology class with me, and like I think our teacher put it really well, and he was like, you know, mentally, like there's a decision there, you know, because it's like you can decide, I'm gonna stay in and study, and like maybe you make an A on the test instead of a B or even a C, or you can decide I'm gonna see my friends because like, you know, that social interaction is something that's important to me, and like and like you can be okay with that choice, you know, like that's an okay thing to decide, because like, you know, and we're taught otherwise, you know, because and that's like really even something that I've just learned this year is like I'm okay with that choice sometimes, you know, like even if you know, like it results in a point lower, like, you know, it is what it is. And so I think like that's the main way that high school has really changed my personality and my mindset, is just like the worldview, you know, because it's like you know, we're here like, and maybe that one point in that class will make a big difference. And if it does, like, you know, there's nothing I can do to change that. Like it happened in 2019 or in 2020, and you know, it is what it is. And so that's like kind of something that I've really like learned in high school, is just it is what it is. So
Yeah, it's funny because like I usually agree with you on things, and like that is one thing that I won't say I disagree with you, but that's just not like my outlook.
yeah,
And in the sense that it's mostly to do with how I've been raised. I have an older brother who's very academically successful, very hardworking and driven, and because of that, that's how I've been expected to be, and that has made me. I feel like it doesn't my priorities. It's all
yeah,
comes down to
yeah.
priorities. What are your priorities? And my priority is I don't care if I hate this class or if I like this class. I'm just going to try to do the best that I can so I can be proud of myself, because I know that the later I get in life, there's going to be some things that I have to go through that I just don't want to do, but I have to do them. So like the way that I kind of view that is like I'm training myself right now to be able to then later do something that is necessary but is not
Yeah.
loved by me.
And,
And I don't look down on you at
oh yeah,
any
no,
means for like
yeah,
believe, and I understand why you feel that way. It's just like I would say one part of my personality that differs from Jacob's is the fact that I am willing to do just some sucky things, like, because that's just how I was raised, you know?
Yeah.
And but to answer your question about like how I've changed,
Definitely a broad question for you.
yeah, it is a broad question for me because you know, they're laughing, but I've had some crazy personal experiences go down, and literally in the past year, in the past 6 months, but in the past
month,
in
if
the
you want to even
yeah,
take it that
the
far.
past 2 weeks,
Yeah.
past, you know, day, but like I have definitely had some strife during my high school years, and I honestly wouldn't take it back. I think the biggest thing that the thing that I would take back is I wish that I didn't take everything so seriously.
Yeah.
And that doesn't go to say that I don't wish that I would have worked as hard, because when it comes down to it, I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud of the effort that I've put into everything that I've done. However, I definitely have the tendency to view things as life or death whenever they're happening to me. And because of that, it has taken away opportunities of joy and reminiscing that I have now, to where I just don't appreciate some of the things that have happened in my life, because and in the time I was too busy thinking about the next day or the next hour or the next minute. I wasn't busy appreciating the present. And that's not unique to me. I feel like every single human being before they die will feel that way.
Yeah.
But I feel like that is a big lesson that I have kind of learned in high school is, don't take things for granted, and don't take yourself too seriously. And don't take your failures too seriously either, because you're meant to fail in life. And I've had a lot of failures happen, and I've really liked to blame myself. But the more you realize that, it is key to hold yourself accountable, but it is also key to recognize when you've been dealt a crappy hand in life and how to deal with that hand.
Yeah.
And so that is probably my biggest takeaway from high school. And it is something that I'd really love to take to college and to my adult life, because I feel like there's a lot of adults who haven't learned that lesson yet, and who are too busy living through their parents' expectations, even as 45-year-olds, and too busy living for society's expectations rather than doing what makes them happy. And I would really like to try to break through that barrier that so many people are faced with, today.
And not to cut you off, Jackson, but just to go off of what you said before I forget. The main I mean, like you said, you're willing to commit more to things that you're not passionate about, and I definitely understand that, and I honestly respect it, because just the way that I am, and I was also raised a pretty similar way, but I think through my life experiences, I have just sort of had it basically shown to me that it's just mentally for me, it's not something that I can do. I just can't fully commit to something that I don't believe in. For instance, this past it's sophomore year and junior year, I loved my English classes, and those are classes that I made the grade that I wanted in, because I loved it, and I loved learning, actually learning that material. And that is also goes hand in hand with the other personality thing in me, is after ninth grade, I kind of realized that I am who I am, and that's something, it sounds cliche, but a lot of high schoolers I feel struggle, and it's honestly been really liberating and freeing for me to just be able to be me. And even with my parents, even if they get upset or get mad at me sometimes, I know that at the end of the day, I stayed true to myself. And I mean, even if you want to boil it down to the clothes that I wear, or the shoes that I buy, it's all things that I like, I just like the way it looks, or I like the way that whatever, but it also goes to a much more serious thing where like I'm not gonna apologize for like being myself anymore, you know, because like what really like messed me up in ninth grade was like I was living apologetically. Like I was being a person who was like there for everybody else, and like that's not why you're here, you know. Like like depending on your beliefs, like personally I'm a Christian, so like I'm here for God and I'm here for myself. Like I'm here to do those two things, and like I'm not here to like live by anyone else, you know. Like I'm not here to impress anybody else. Like if the person that like I want myself to be like ends up impressing someone else or making an impression on someone else that is positive, then that's great. But like I mean, there's even been a lot of people in high school who like don't like me, and like that's okay, cause like I get it. Like you know, like even just like a lot of people haven't like wanted to be friends with me just because like I'm very like I've become very outspoken, which was like a big transition for me in high school. Was because like before high school like I was this like shy little kid, and like granted like I'm definitely not the most like confident outwardly person now, but like definitely has been more so than before. So I mean, yeah, like you were saying, like there's no right or wrong. Like not to say that there's any right or wrong. And like the reason that I think that the three of us and like other people close to us can like have conversations is because we are like different and we don't agree on everything, and like we're allowed to disagree and like not like hate each other, you know. Like it's not like if I say a political like a political statement that is a line different than yours, you're not going to be like, well, you're just an idiot, like, you know. So anyway, you can go ahead if you want to.
Yeah, totally. I guess sort of at this point where I am now, you know, going through high school and being here in this moment, I guess kind of one thing that I, you know, kind of an ideology that I hold pretty close is sort of lies in the middle of both of you, I guess. I know like it's a little less than what you're saying, Jacob, of like it is what it is, like, you know, and then it's a little in the middle, it's a little off of what you're saying is like good or bad, like I need to do this or whatever, you know. I've just kind of learned that, you know, personally, things only hold the value that I give it, right? You know, so like, yeah, so I want to succeed in school, right? And you know, I can stress myself out sometimes, and like sometimes I won't feel totally prepared for a test, and I'll make a bad grade, right? But the thing is that no matter what happens, like however, like whatever number comes back on that piece of paper, like literally just this piece of paper with letters and numbers on it, like no matter how that comes back, like what grade I get, like I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna get on PlayStation, or I'm gonna go to like a restaurant and I'm gonna see my friends, or I'm gonna talk to my friends, and they're not gonna say anything different to me based on what I made on that score, right? So like things like this, you know, I just like stuff like tests, and whether they're good or bad, I'd try to like take away, you know, that control that it could have on my life, because, you know, like in real life, like stuff in school doesn't truly affect like your real life when you leave that building, right? Because your friends are your friends and your family is your family, and they care about you, you know, regardless of how you do, you know what I'm saying? So I guess, and even like the stuff people say, like, you know, I used, you know, one way I've changed is like in middle school and in ninth grade to now, like I used to give a lot of my mind, like a lot of real estate in my brain to like people's reactions of me, or like what they would think of me, you know what I'm saying? And so like now I think I've kind of taken away the value of other people's opinions, and just kind of like lived my life and, you know, been who I am. So I guess that's one big way I've changed.
I mean, I think I've even like just like being like hanging out, like definitely have seen that reflected, because I mean like it is what it is, like, you know. I say that like definitely like not completely, because, you know, like I definitely am still stressed sometimes by school, but like it's something that like I'm gonna study, and like I'm gonna study for like half an hour to an hour, and like if I'm not getting it, like I'm not gonna kill myself over it, you know, like.
See, that's where we're different, man. I will stay up and I will cry.
I know,
I
like
will
just
cry.
nights. I just remember like a lot of mornings you were like, yeah, I was up till 3 in the morning.
Yeah,
like just,
yeah. I had I started screaming and crying
Yeah,
as
and banging on my
a
steering wheel.
grown like
Yeah.
teenager because of a math homework, like because
but
of
it's
a math
like,
test.
you know, like I'll be studying, like if I'm not getting it, like I'll understand. Like usually, like I've gotten to the point where like I can pretty much like generally understand things if I listen in class, you know, which isn't always like a constant, but usually it is. And like, you know, I'll study and I'll do what I do, but then like if one of the boys is like y'all, do y'all want to like get on PlayStation, like, you know, like I'm not gonna rob myself of that. I mean, it's like you said, and like I know like us both being in advanced placement US history, like the same teacher, like there were a lot of times where like we would go study and like we're not gonna like, you know, like there's people who like I studied for 6 hours last night, you know, like that's never gonna be me, bro. Like, you know, that's never gonna be me. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you either get it or you don't.
Yeah,
and then if you're not getting it, then you end up staying up late enough to where you're still not getting it, but you're now affecting your performance like the next day.
it's like we'd like go to like Starbucks and we'd be there for like an hour and a half, and we'd be like, all right, you know, like we went over it and like we listened in class, like while she was teaching, most classes anyway, and like now, and you know, like the thing about tests, like I know this is something that you have like talked or thought a lot about, like test scores and stuff like that. You know, a test score like isn't a reflection of like your value as a human being. It's a reflection of your intellectual capacity at that moment, you know? Cuz like you fail a test, like it doesn't mean you're just an idiot. You know, it means that at that time for that material you weren't prepared. You weren't prepared for
Except for when you make a good grade, then you're a genius. Obviously.
But like in all seriousness, like, you know, like that's something that a lot of people get caught up in, and it's something that a lot of our like parents get caught up in, you know, like holy God, bro, like.
I know. I used to ask. I had a close friend whose mom used to like drive her crazy about her scores, and I used to ask her like, what was your mom's ACT score? And it's always lower.
Yeah.
You know, it's never the same. And
Well, and it's not wrong.
no,
to
it's not
expect
wrong,
that of
and
your
it's not
kids.
wrong to have high expectations of your
Yeah.
kids. I just always found it ironic, you know,
Yeah.
like to have the immense amount of pressure on like your child when like then you have to ask yourself like, was I that way as a kid? Like,
Yeah.
but then again, you know, I can see it both ways because you might want your kid. You might look back on your life and want your kid to try harder than you did because you regret not trying it.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you even like you want to look at it like both ways because like obviously the three of us have had pretty like somewhat similar like parental like pressure, you know, like maybe like one more than the other, but either way, like we've all had expectations.
It's not overwhelming, but
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah, and like we've all obviously like responded different. Like to me, like I had to have that pressure on me to realize that like, you know, like it's not big enough to worry so much over, you know, and or it's not big enough for me to want to like bring myself to worry so much over, you know, and like, or it's just not big enough for me to commit this time where I could be doing something that I really enjoy. And like, you know, I like have just realized that like in high school, like while I do want to have good grades and I want to go to a good college and like I want to get a good education, I also like want to enjoy myself and like you enjoy yourself for sure. So it's not like just like different sides, but like you definitely still enjoy yourself, man. So it's not like but like my girlfriend like didn't like she had someone looking at her grades, but something that I've like learned a lot from her is like it was never as close as us, and like, you know, different people respond in different ways is basically what I'm trying to say, like by saying this, because she like got a job and like made good grades and like is at college like when no one in her family has been to college, and like that's something that is like really like inspiring for me, but also like really shows that like one life experience does not make the same person all the time, because there are a lot of people who like that don't have the strong hand that we all have had growing up, and like they just never care.
And you know, it also shows you like the way that success varies. You know, there's no such thing as one definition of success, because I feel that success is one of the most personal things that anybody can have in their entire life.
Yeah.
You know, their religious beliefs and like their ideal of success. Because like if you think about it, like there are kids at our school, you know, valedictorian, salutatorian, like whatever you want to call yourself. Like some would say that that is the most successful you could get in high school. But then some would say that growing up in a hard background while working a job, getting good grades, and getting yourself to college is more of a challenge than being valedictorian of your school. So it really shows that, like, based on your situation and like based on how you are as a person, will base like your ideal of success. And like that's almost beautiful to me, to know that like success is not one thing, and to know that as a human, like, you can strive for whatever you choose in life, and that is perfectly okay. And that's one thing I feel like people don't realize, especially our age, is like it is okay
Absolutely.
that someone has a different mindset or different ideals than you. Like it is, and I mean, I'm just as guilty of like there are times where you can look down on people and think that they're lazy and
Yeah.
whatnot. And you know, I've been in classes that are pretty hard, and there are people in there that would like look down on me because they didn't think that I gave it the same effort. And you know,
Story
like
of my
in my
life.
mind, I was giving it the most effort that I humanly could.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you definitely are.
but
Like,
to
yeah.
but to have someone sit there and show me their score on their practice test and tell me that they're smarter than me, like that is like why I have made some of the realizations that I have in life, is because like I've had some people talk to me like I'm a piece of garbage just because I'm 1 point lower than them on a test. And like I just feel like, to like everybody out there who is listening, like just know that it is okay to be you, and that it is okay for you to have a different definition of success than someone else. That does not make you a worse person by any means.
I mean, I earlier like talked about my junior English class, and you actually had the same teacher, not the same class, but the same teacher. And we did that definition essay, and success is actually the word that I did. And I think like that was honestly like really educating, like really educational for me to like do that paper, because like I kind of had the same realization that you are now. Like like to me, like success is positive experience. Like to me, like a good day, you know but like a good day, like yeah, a good day is like, sure, like maybe I did some studying, but like I went to dinner with my friends, and like I had an important conversation that like made me learn more, and like that's going to teach me a whole lot more than like studying that whole night would have, like really like building relationships. But like to some people that's not important, and like that's okay, man. Like like if you have friends and like you don't feel the need to like to like if you feel the need to hang out with them less frequently than I want to see the people that I care about, that's fine, man. I'm not gonna knock you, but like for me, like that's important to me. And like it's really a shame that like, I mean, like you said, like a lot of people our age aren't that way, man. Because like I talking about advanced placement courses, my advanced placement United States history class was like really like had a good bit of people like that. And like not
They
to
can
knock
get
them, man, 'cause
toxic,
they
man.
are smart, bro. Like
And they're
like
dedicated.
and they got work ethic that I don't have, man. Like at least not for something. They have work ethic for like that I don't have, and it's like, man, like that's cool. Like I respect you for that, but like you got to respect, or you don't have to, but like it would be great if you could respect me for like still making a decent grade, and like also like making the decisions that I want to make, because a lot of people, like literally, like you just said, like music to my freaking ears, bro. Like a lot of people just like think I'm stupid. Like they think that I don't try. And like the reality is not that I don't try. It's just that it's not the same way that you do, man. Like, like just because I made 100, I didn't make 100, like I made a 97. So like that don't matter to me, bro. Like, I made an A, like I made I reflected the effort that I put into. And it may be less than you, it may be more than the person who made 100, but like in the end, like I don't care, man, and it's like that's like a bigger part of like the sort of mindset that I've taken throughout high school is like competition is important, but like it's not everything, like yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. And like, but it's honestly like a double edge for me, is because like I want to prove these dudes wrong. Just be like, I can score higher than you. Like you want to watch me, but like I don't want to do it because like I don't want to like I'm not gonna compromise who I am like just to impress you, like. But like I really want to, but like I'm not. That's what I'm saying, bro. Like it'd be kind of nice to just sit you boys down like one time, like just one time, like just to show you. And sometimes like I have gotten that. Like I've
Yeah,
just been like,
and you know what? Like sometimes that isn't even that toxic, because
Yeah.
like it can make you a better person.
oh yeah.
You know.
I mean, I definitely like. I think you can share the same like person that I'm talking about. Like person just kind of like gets over the top with it sometimes. Just really makes me happy whenever like I hear him or her like gloating their score, and I'm just like I just know in my head I'm like I made higher than you. So like, but I'm not gonna say crap about it. You know.
I mean, because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anybody justice to do it right back whenever someone acts that way. But yeah, and it's really crazy because that makes me think of like the way that we're raised and like in the society that we're raised in, because in places like Japan and in China, things are more for the greater good of the community instead of individual as they are in America. And you can tell when it gets toxic, when that mindset, the individual mindset can get toxic, because it can. It's also very great,
Bro,
but
like competition is important, bro.
exactly, it's important as a
Like
human
I'm
being.
a competitor, like I'm
Yes.
super competitive, and I love competing, and I hate losing, and like, but it's not everything, you know. Like I mean, like I was saying, so.
It's just crazy because like you definitely see the cases of toxic individualism, especially at our age where there's so much insecurity. Everybody is so insecure at our age, including me and both of y'all. Like we all have our own insecurities, and you.
No, not me.
Oh, you're not you. Oh, it's just me. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just me. But yeah, and you just gotta learn to like not let that put you down as a person, because I let it for a while. I let that put me down, and it still can. I'm not saying that
I mean, you
I've
can sit here and
solved all
say that
that.
all day, you know. It doesn't like.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that like sometimes like, we don't all like let it
Yeah.
get to us.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, like you said, like that's what's important.
And it's funny, like, to kind of go back to what we were talking about a little earlier. It's crazy to me how a lot of people view people like Michael Jordan as like super successful, and some people like that, because what they do is they find like one thing that they're like amazing at, and they practice it every day, and then they become a master. But like one thing that I really enjoy and one thing that I aspire to be in like my career field is someone who's like a master of none. There's always that saying, yeah, a jack of all trades. Like, people always, there's that saying, and there's the bad connotation of someone who's like not an expert at something but knows a lot about everything. But like in my worldview and in like my definition of success, like I want to be good at a lot of things instead of great at one thing, because I enjoy a lot of things and I don't want to limit myself to one thing. And that's really become apparent to me as I've looked for like a career field as I'm getting older, because I've realized that like there isn't one single thing that I would like die for. There's a bunch of things that I just enjoy doing, and I feel like by the time I die, like I just want to know that I was good at a bunch of things and that I enjoyed the world for what it was in all of its different aspects and learned as much as I could, instead of sat myself in a room, shooting hoops, throwing dice, like doing card tricks, like whatever it is. Like that's just not me, and I respect the hell out of people who have the ambition to do that. But that's just
I mean, yeah. I mean, you even want to like stick with Michael Jordan, like literally one of the greatest competitors of all time. And while like, yeah, and like while that's like a great thing to be, like it's so important, like considering like your maturity and your growth as a person to understand things, you know, because it's like, I mean, we were literally talking about this the other night. Like the whole reason that we're doing this and like talking it all, like maybe some people are gonna think we're sounding like idiots, but it's like there's some things like, okay, and like you're talking about career, like one, like I want to like write, like I want to write for movies and or TV or whatever, like whatever it is, and like the reason that I want to do that and that I've realized that that's something that I really want to do is because like I feel like there's a lot of things that some people don't get, you know, and not to like take a high and mighty stance by any means, because there's a lot of things that I don't get. But like I think that the people who are capable of saying things need to, and like and growing up, like I think that I can, and like that's why I want to do it. But like I think it's important that you like while I want to be a writer, like for media, I'm not like writing off any other career, you know, like I'm not writing off other things, but like that's just really what I want to do because I want to like show that in my work, you know, like obviously like y'all know, like I like big role model of mine is like Quentin Tarantino because I really admire his style, his writing, his direction, everything about it. And like the reason that I do is because he portrays like this real like image of a human, and like that's what I want to do, you know, because like I mean this whole episode like we've kind of like we have, but like really what we've been talking about for like the latter like half basically is like human stuff, you know, like being a human is like, I mean like you said earlier, like it's beautiful, you know, like there are so many parts of being a human being. It's not all physical, it's not all mental, it's not all morality, it's not all like any spiritual, any of this, like the beauty of like being a human is the whole of it, you know, like, and there's like even the song that we all know, like the celebrate the whole of it, and like we sing that song we sing that song, and like and like and I love that song because it's like, and I love that like line in that song because it's like, you know, like one thing cannot exist without the adjacent, you know, like in a vacuum, like one thing means nothing. And this might like sound like gibberish, but anyway, like the whole, like I said, like the whole reason we're doing this is just because like we feel like we have something to say, not only as young people, but just as people in general. And yeah, and like just with like the mind that we have been given and the experiences that we have had and that have developed that mind in that way that it has, like that's why like this is something that like we like care about, you know?
Well, you
like,
know, that really has brought me to like the point that every human being that has gone down in history of being, you know, worthy of being talked about, like even after they die, every artist, every politician, every one of them, like the reason that they have been such a like role model or such a figure is because they spoke their truth. And like that's what I feel like a good artist does, is they speak
Yeah.
their truth, whether that's a musician or a director. Like Tarantino just puts you in the eyes of like his world, and he shows you his world and his view of the world, and it's like it's amazing to be able to watch another human's view of that. And I mean, you can even go and talk about Tupac. Like Tupac gives you his world,
Yeah.
and it's a glimpse into something that you've never seen before, and that's just the human experience. And like that's kind of what we're trying to get accomplished, and this is we're telling you our truth and the way that we see the world.
The human experience.
And I'm not
Branding right
comparing
there, bro.
myself to Tupac by any means. I feel like we are pretty adjacent in our lifestyles.
I mean, it's also like, I mean, like we were talking about, man, like it's just expression, you know, like, and that's the other big thing for me. Like, no matter what career, like, I don't think that I can survive without expression, like, in my life, because like that's, I think, is so overlooked in like in human life, is just like everyone needs like some way of expression, and like it's really 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 important. Um and like something that I've like talked a lot about, like wherever it may be, like in small groups or like in church or anywhere in front of a group, like is like no matter what like people want to teach you or people want to tell you, like they can't take away like your world experiences, you know, like they can't take away, like you said, your truth, your story, your life. Like they can't, like, you know, like something may happen, for instance, like historically 9/11, you know, like that meant so many different things to a lot of people. To some Americans it was like, I am now afraid of people of a certain race, or of anyone who could commit any act like this, like, you know, the opening that we are to like attacks like that we have. And but like to people in different countries, it was like American people hate us, you know, like, and that's so like like polarizing, like so different, like such different viewpoints, and like, but one is not more true than the other, and like that's the whole, you know, like that's what it really, like that's what it's about.
And
know,
I feel like that's where a lot of people go wrong.
yeah,
Is that they take their truth and then they try to
force it.
drown out the truth of other
Yeah.
people instead of listening to their truths. And you know, like you don't have to accept somebody's truth, but you do have to listen to it, and you do have to, you don't have to try to understand, but
But recognize it as like you know, like
It's valid.
yeah,
Whether you believe it or not, it is valid.
yeah, and I mean, so anyway, so yeah, I mean, definitely, that's like the main thing, and we have been going on for a while. We kind of talked about like ourselves a lot, so, which is great because that's kind of what we wanted to do. So something that we're gonna do on this podcast, hopefully every episode, I don't know, is what we're gonna call like the off-top section of it. So basically, like I'm Jacob, and I'm acting as like the host for this episode, like not above them, but just like sort of guiding the conversation and just being like just overlooking it kind of. So like basically the whole point of this is like whoever's the host like that given week or whatever is going to sort of like formulate like a question. It doesn't even have to be like something super complicated, and it's probably usually not going to be, as you're like going to see, but basically like a type of like cold response, you know, like they don't know what it is. So we started off talking about like 2020, and a lot of it is negative stuff. So like the off top, and I just kind of wanted to like talk about like positive experiences that we have had in 2020, and we did it a little bit at the beginning, but like just any outstanding like positive thing can be in your personal life, or like positive things in the world or whatever. Like I just kind of wanted to like end off on a more positive note. Just anything.
Well, shoot,
Like,
I'll tell you, the biggest positive for me is like, as I said a little earlier, like I like trying new things, and I just like, trying to understand different things that I don't agree with and whatnot. And like being on lockdown and being by myself has given me so much time to try new things. Like
Yeah.
like at the start of quarantine, I built a garden in my backyard, and I started growing jalapenos and tomatoes. And no, it's kind of dying. I haven't really watered it very well.
I mean,
but,
you learned, so.
yeah, but I mean, at least I tried it. And,
Yeah.
and if someone approached me and they liked gardens, I could probably hold a conversation with them for maybe about 5 minutes. But
Yeah,
I could
but
talk about gardening
more
with
than
them.
me,
And it was
so.
an experience, And I did. I started golfing. Very bad at that, but I don't think many people are good at golfing. They're just a little
yeah.
better
Yeah.
because they've spent a lot more money.
Yeah, and time.
Yeah, and time. And but that was pretty fun. And I've tried meditating. I've tried yoga. It's just given me an opportunity to try new things that I wouldn't have had because like your normal life and life before COVID was just so hectic for me that I found things that I enjoyed early on, and then I was just stuck doing those things, and I didn't have the time to just try some new things. So that's definitely been like the biggest positive for me.
And again, not to cut you off, but I mean, we're not really going around this time. So like basically like that's kind of what I have been just like talking to people about like since the beginning of this. Like on Zoom calls or wherever. I've just been talking to people about like this is like such an opportunity. Like see the good like in every single day, because when in your life, man, have like you been able for 6 months to wake up when you want to, granted like it's your decision what's a good or bad time to like wake up, like I'm not going to say I haven't slept in, but like I've also had the opportunity to like have a whole day, man. Like like that's not even something that we normally have. Like normally we get home from school at like 4 o'clock. Yeah, like, and so like we like have a couple hours, we go to bed, we wake up, go to school, do it all again, like just repeat, and it's like, I mean, like you said, like we've had an opportunity here to like break up that just cycle that we've been on since the beginning of like since as long as I can remember, like like school, the cycle of school or doing whatever, and on top of that, like since a lot of like stuff has been canceled, that is like a double meaning, but it's not supposed to be. Like a lot of like events and stuff have been canceled. It's been like a lot of free time to like really decide what's important to me. And I mean, we were just talking about the other night, like like I have changed so much as a person, I feel like since this all began. Like my God, man, like just thinking about like the dude that I was walking around the halls of that high school like a couple months ago, like that's not me anymore, man. And like I think like along with like appreciating that time, I think it's also made me really appreciate the normal, like what normal life was, like appreciate the human connection like between one another, because like I'm like the type of person where like I can be alone. Like I enjoy being alone with myself. But like it definitely started to like show a bad side by like a couple of weeks in, you know, like I mean, I didn't leave the house for like over a month. And like you really just learn to appreciate like seeing those people face to face, because like a Zoom call is not the same thing. And it's like we met every Friday morning before school and had breakfast. And like, you know, you can't do stuff like that anymore. And like it's really something that our generation now like gets to learn early, you know, because a lot of the times like people don't learn that until they go off to college. Like they're like, wow, like I got to live under my parents' roof, and like they made me dinner every night, and like they bought things for me and like gave me money, and now like I need a job, and I never appreciated like the benefit, while like all I did was complain about like freedom. And now that I have it, you know, like, and that's yeah. And like I probably countless times was like, man, I wish I could just not go to school tomorrow. Like I mean, like me and Jackson talked a lot about like there were just times in like junior year where, I mean, and I know you can relate, David, like there were just times in junior year where it was like, I don't know if I can go like another day right now, like I need the weekend so bad. And then yeah, and then we got like a 5 month long break, and like while I'm not saying like I'm ready to go back to school, like I'm definitely gonna appreciate it more than I did, you know, because it's like, you know, next year we're going to college, and like we're not gonna be at high school anymore. We're not gonna live under our parents' roof anymore, hopefully. And uh, and like that's something that we know now, like before we go to college, like so we can enjoy this last year of like being here together with our high school friends and with our parents, like our family, you know, like
Yeah, and that goes to prove that, like, the thing I was talking about earlier, where it's like you don't understand problems until they're right in front of your face, or like humans don't do
yeah,
that. Um, like we're just as guilty, you know,
yeah,
because like we didn't
absolutely,
understand that until it happened to us.
yeah. All right, Jackson, now you can talk.
Awesome, man. Nah, I mean, I guess in the past 6 months, like, just not being able to go to school and like do the usual things like that I would do had there not been this period of time where, you know, like this whole disease and stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, like, I just kind of really gotten to focus, and I think the things that I took for granted were kind of revealed to me, you know. I guess like you know, like we hang out a lot, and we go and eat a lot, you know what I'm saying? And like I guess I kind of took for granted just like being able to go and like sit down like with my friends, you know, and just like eat together, and not like, cuz we eat in the car whole lot. Like a whole lot, you know? And so I guess it's just stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think I've had enough time to you know, I didn't realize how much I took school for granted. Like, for real. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm kind of excited to be back, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I'll have...
Only David is shaking his head in disagreement right now, but...
No, I mean, I'm okay with not being there.
Yeah, right.
I'm just saying, like, I'm okay with going back. I'm sure I'll find my own stuff to hate within, like, the first 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, like,
but
we'll all be complaining.
100%.
But, like...
I mean, I could complain right now.
Yeah, you want to talk about the schedules? No, but, like... But, I mean, I mean, it's just, like, the whole, like, reoccurring theme of, like... The whole, like, later... Or, like, the second half of this podcast is, like... You know, it's all about the whole, you know? Like, it'll be good... I think, to have like the time away from school and the time at school, because like we have not been forcefully like mentally stimulated for 6 months. Like, so that's like not great.
I don't think I've read anything at all.
Exactly, man. Like that's what I'm saying. Like honestly, the only intellectual thought has been like within like conversations, like this, like anything like that, like
Or YouTube videos.
yeah. But anyway, so just kind of wanted to end it off with like some positivity. So we have talked for a while. Pretty good.
Yeah, if you're listening right now, I applaud you.
Yeah, and thank you. But hopefully we'll put out content pretty consistently, pretty frequently. Obviously, we don't really know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I feel like one very interesting thing is going to be like the way that we talk to each other and our perspective, like the later in the year that we go, because like right now we're coming.
We'll just give some updates.
I mean, I feel like you'll be able
on
to
some basis.
You'll be able to hear it just in the way that we talk on this thing, because
we'll just be like sad.
because like right now, like we are so like happy-go-lucky right now, and like gosh, if it weren't for the bad, like we wouldn't even have the good and stuff like that. But I feel like once we get back into school, we'll just like that attitude will change, because
it's like a cesspool, bro. Like it's awful. Like it does definitely negatives, but yeah, I mean, you're probably right.
Yeah, but I feel like it'll be kind of fun if you follow along to kind of pick up on those small differences that we may have.
Like you said, almost at the very beginning, like it's a formative time. So come along for the journey. I don't know what it sounds dramatic, but I think we're gonna call it there, and thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you
this
guys
long
so
if
much.
you did, and we will see you on the next episode, or like you'll hear us, whatever you want to say.
Yeah,
So,
peace out.